Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our community meeting about the West Oakland BART Mandela Station Cleanup Project. I'm Denise One, and I serve as a public participation specialist with the Department of Toxic Substances Control, Office of Environmental Equity. We will call it DTSC for short tonight. Just a quick reminder, we are recording tonight's session, and by staying with us, you agree to be part of that recording. Thank you so much for making time in your busy day to be here with us. Your participation truly matters, and we're grateful that you've chosen to be part of the conversation about this important project. We have set aside 2 hours together from 6 to 8 p.m. to walk through our proposed cleanup plan and to make sure we address your questions and concerns. My fellow public participation specialists, Janelle Gilstrap and Jessica Anderson, will be supporting me through this presentation. Next slide, please. I want to ensure that all community members can fully participate in tonight's discussion. We have comprehensive language support available for this meeting. For our Mandarin and Spanish-speaking participants, click the globe interpretation button on your Zoom toolbar. You'll see options to select your preferred language, either Mandarin or Spanish. Once you click it, you'll be automatically connected to our live interpretation channel, where our certified interpreters will provide real-time translation throughout the meeting. We've also prepared the complete presentation deck in both Spanish and Mandarin. You can find all of tonight's PowerPoint slides, along with project materials, on our EnviroStore page. The link will be placed in the chat. To follow along with the materials in your preferred language, for English-speaking participants, please click the interpretation icon to confirm your language preference is set to English. That will help provide optimal audio quality. Before we continue, I'm going to pause for a moment to allow our interpreters to make this announcement in 2 languages, ensuring that everyone understands how to access these services. First, we will listen to the instructions in Spanish.
Buenas noches. Para acceder a la interpretación en español, haga clic en el icono del mundo que dice Interpretación en la barra de menú inferior en la pantalla de Zoom, y allí verá un menú donde podrá elegir Español.
大家好，我这里是普通话的翻译。那么，如果您要使用中文的翻译，
Thank you, interpretation team. Next slide. So why are we here tonight? We're here to inform. We've come together tonight to share the details of our
今天
proposed
晚上
cleanup plan in a way that makes sense to you and your community. We're here for engagement. We want to hear about your questions, your concerns, and your thoughts during our public comment period. We want to encourage you. We want to guide you through the public comment process and the submission requirements for any comments that you might have. Next slide. Let's make this easy for everyone. With closed captions, to turn on the automated closed captions, click the CC button on the toolbar. To chat, you're currently in the view and listen only role, which means that the chat function is turned off for attendees. We'll be providing links and information in the chat box. The Q&A session. Here's how we'll handle the questions tonight. You'll see that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That's your direct line to us. Feel free to send questions anytime during our presentation. We're collecting them as we go along, and we'll address them all during our Q&A time. Please note, we will not be taking questions through the chat function. A small request, small favor from you. Please send us one question at a time so that we can give each the attention it deserves. We'll work through them in the order that we receive them. Before we dive in, let's set some meeting commitments to make sure that everyone gets the most out of our time together. By being a part of this meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You may be muted to help reduce background noise. And in the Q&A session and the public comment section, speak clearly and at an even pace so that everyone can follow along. Remember, use the Q&A button to type your questions throughout that presentation. We want to use your valuable time well and to ensure that everyone's voice is heard, and to make sure that you leave tonight with everything you need to provide a thoughtful input in our draft cleanup proposal. Next slide. Now let's review tonight's agenda so you know what to expect over the next hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll begin with a brief welcome and introductions, where I'm providing an overview of tonight's meeting format and introduce you to key members who are here to support you. Next, Sarah Larice, our project manager, will provide a comprehensive presentation covering 3 essential areas. First, she'll explain DTSC's site mitigation and restoration program and how it works. Second, she'll give you detailed background information about the West Oakland BART Mandela Station site specifically. Finally, she'll walk you through the proposed cleanup approach that we're seeking your input on tonight. Then we'll take a brief 5-minute break to allow you to stretch and prepare for the interactive portion of our meeting. Following the break, we'll have a structured question and answer section where our DTSC program team will respond directly to your questions about the technical presentation you heard. Finally, we'll end with the public comments session. This is where we invite you to share your concerns, opinions, and suggestions about this project. I want to emphasize that every comment will be carefully reviewed and formally addressed in writing before we finalize the draft cleanup plan. Now, I'm pleased to introduce Sarah Larice, our site project manager, who has a keen understanding of the West Oakland Mandela site. Sarah? Next slide.
Thank you, Denise. Good evening, everyone. Let me start by explaining who we are. DTSC stands for Department of Toxic Substances Control. Our mission is to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances. We are a state of California regulatory oversight agency. In this role, we are responsible for overseeing the investigation and cleanup of contaminated properties. In West Oakland, we're the lead agency overseeing the investigation and cleanup of the BART station site. We take our responsibility to historically vulnerable communities like West Oakland very seriously. In 2022, the West Oakland BART station site received an Equitable Community Revitalization Grant, also known as ECRG, specifically to support the cleanup of this site. It is important to note that we do not make decisions about what gets built on the site. Development decisions are made by the developer and the City of Oakland. Our job is solely focused on making sure the site is cleaned up safely. Next slide, please. DTSC's mission is to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances, to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land, and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. Our work is mission-focused on accomplishing this by restoring contaminated sites, enforcing hazardous waste laws, reducing hazardous waste generation, and compelling the development of safer consumer products. DTSC's vision is for all of California to be thriving in a healthy environment. Next slide, thank you. DTSC's project team consists of the following DTSC team members. I am Sarah Larice, the project manager. I'm a senior environmental scientist with DTSC's Site Mitigation and Restoration Program, Office of Brownfields, Project Management Unit. Megan Hearn is my project supervisor. She is the unit chief of the Site Mitigation and Restoration Program's Office of Brownfields, Project Management Unit. Michelle Hu is the project's toxicologist with DTSC's Human and Ecological Risk Office. Mark Sorensen is the project's geologist with DTSC's Geological Services Branch. Haja Aziz is the project's engineer with DTSC's Engineering and Special Projects Office. Denise Wan is the project's Public Participation Specialist with the Office of Environmental Equity. And Candice Hill is the project's Supervising Environmental Planner with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, unit. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you about the proposed cleanup of the BART station site. The public comment period opened on Wednesday, May 21st, and it goes through Friday, June 20th. We are about 3 weeks in, so there is still time to share your thoughts and concerns with us. Please don't wait. We need all your comments by Friday, June 20th. After that date, we cannot include new ideas in our final plan, and we do not want to miss hearing from anyone. There are several ways to reach me. You can send me an email to sarah.larice@dtsc.ca.gov. Or you can mail me a letter to 5796 Corporate Avenue, Cypress, California, 90630. Now let me walk you through the investigation and cleanup process overseen by DTSC so you understand where we are in the timeline and what comes next. The first step is the initiation of a voluntary agreement. In 2021, we signed an agreement with Mandela Station Partners, LLC. They are the developer. This gave us the legal authority to oversee all investigation and cleanup work. The second step is conducting scoping meetings. We hold these meetings with the developer and their environmental consultant to discuss the best way to investigate the contamination. These meetings help us design the environmental investigations. During the third step, the evaluation phase, site investigations such as soil, groundwater, and soil vapor sampling are conducted to determine the extent of contamination at the site. This tells us what contamination exists and how far it extends. Risk assessment and pilot testing, if necessary, is the next step. A human health risk assessment is a process to determine if contaminants detected at a site are of concern to human health and the environment. The human health risk assessment involves using environmental data to estimate the nature, magnitude, and probability of adverse health effects on people who may be exposed to the contaminated soil at the site now and in the future. Voluntary agreements agreement projects such as this use the human health risk assessment to make decisions about allowable use or reuse of the property and to facilitate an effective assessment and cleanup strategy to ensure safe end use. This tells us what level of cleanup is needed for safe use. The next step involves the preparation of the draft cleanup plan and the associated California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, document. This step is where we are right now within the process, and it is circled here in red. For this site, the cleanup plan that has been created is called the Remedial Action Plan, which is the subject of this meeting. The draft version of the Remedial Action Plan describing the proposed remedy is currently open for public comment through Friday, June 20th. A requirement of the Remedial Action Plan includes consideration and compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. CEQA requires DTSC as a responsible agency to evaluate if the cleanup activities will have an impact on the environment. For this site, DTSC prepared an addendum to the West Oakland Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report. The addendum concludes that cleanup activities at the site will not have an adverse effect on public health and the environment. The final step is remedy selection and implementation. After the close of the public comment period, DTSC will review and consider the public comments and will approve a final remedy. The developer's environmental consultant will then provide a plan to DTSC, which will indicate exactly how they will carry out the cleanup. Once approved by DTSC, the cleanup work at the site will begin. Throughout this process, public participation engagement is conducted. Public participation requirements include preparation of a community profile report, a public notice, a minimum 30-day public comment period, and preparation of a written responsiveness summary. Community involvement is encouraged, and your input is not just welcomed. A request for your input on the proposed cleanup is required by law. We must have a 30-day comment period, and we must respond in writing to every comment we receive. The former uses of the site will help to understand what happened on this site and will explain why it needs to be cleaned up. The area outlined in red on this map is the West Oakland BART station site. It is approximately 5.5 acres and consists of the elevated BART station platform and paved parking lots around the station. Prior to the 1960s, the site was developed with single-family residences and commercial businesses. Some of the former site uses on the eastern side of the site are outlined with the dashed black line on this map. By 1912, a hardwood veneer and door manufacturing company, a sash and door factory, a warehouse, and a white lead storage area were developed on the eastern portion of the site, the right side of this map. By 1951, the white lead storage area became a junkyard and auto dismantling yard. In the 1960s, all of the old structures on the site were demolished for construction of the BART station. And by 1972, construction of the BART station and associated parking lots were completed. The past industrial uses of the site left contamination in the soil. The site needs to be cleaned up before any new development can safely happen. Our job is to make sure this contamination does not pose any risk to future users of the site. Now let me explain what was found during previous environmental investigations at the site. Soil, groundwater, and soil vapor sampling and testing were conducted between 2006 and 2007, and also in 2019 through 2021. These investigations were conducted to determine the extent of contamination at the site. The previous investigations and sampling at the site confirmed that soil is contaminated with chemicals associated with the former historical land uses. The main chemicals of concern in the soil are metals, primarily lead, arsenic, and mercury, as well as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, also known as PAHs, and polychlorinated biphenyls, also known as PCBs. PAHs are typically associated with petroleum products and engine combustion. PCBs were once widely used as fluids for electrical equipment and were banned in the 1970s, but are persistent in the environment. Based on our human health risk assessment, which is an important part of the remedial action plan, we found that chemicals of concern in soil vapor and groundwater are present at levels that do not require cleanup action. This means the primary focus of our remediation efforts will be on soil contamination. The developer, Mandela Station Partners LLC, plans to redevelop the site. The City of Oakland is responsible for development decisions. DTSC is responsible for overseeing the cleanup prior to redevelopment. The developer plans to redevelop the site with buildings on 3 areas identified as T1, T3, and T4, and construction of an open plaza on the T2 area. These 4 areas are outlined in purple on this map. The T1 area, located northeast of the BART tracks, shown here on the upper right side of this map, will be developed with an approximately 30-story residential tower with ground floor retail shops with an at-grade foundation. The T2 area, located directly northwest of the tracks, shown here on the upper left side of this map, will consist of an open space landscaped plaza with landscape and hardscape features such as paved walkways. The T3 area, located southwest of the BART tracks, shown here on the lower left side of this map, will be developed with an approximately 7-story residential structure with retail shops and parking on the ground level. The T4 area, located southeast of the BART tracks, shown here on the lower right side of this map, will be developed with a 100-foot tall office building with ground floor retail shops and between 300 and 500,000 square feet of office space. This project will create approximately 760 rental apartments, including 240 affordable units for the community. They will also construct a bicycle station beneath the BART tracks with bike and pedestrian pathways to improve connectivity. Because this site has some contaminated soil from past industrial uses, a cleanup plan is required before the site can be redeveloped. The Remedial Action Plan, or RAP, for the West Oakland BART station site is the cleanup plan detailing the proposed remedy. The draft version of the RAP is the document that is currently available for public review and comments and is the subject of this meeting. Information included in the RAP includes a summary of the site background and historical uses of the site, a summary of the previous environmental investigations and testing already completed at the site, a human health risk evaluation for the contaminants of concern, the current contaminant distribution and cleanup goals to be achieved, the different cleanup options that were considered, why the recommended approach was chosen, how we will comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, and the public participation and community engagement process, including tonight's meeting. This draft RAP is currently available for public review and comment. We are within the 30-day comment period where you can share your thoughts. And again, we will respond to all comments in writing. In the draft RAP for the West Oakland BART station site, we reviewed 3 different approaches for cleaning up the contaminated soil. Alternative 1 is no action or do nothing, which is always the baseline for comparison in a remedial action plan. Alternatives 2 and 3 include excavation, which is the physical removal of contaminated soil. Under Alternative 2, soil would be removed only from areas where they are building, such as the T1, T2, T3, and T4 development areas, but additional soil removal beyond the construction envelopes would not be performed. Most of the contaminated soil would be removed and then disposed at a licensed landfill. However, some contaminated soil that remains beneath buildings will be left in place. The concrete foundations of the buildings would act as protective caps over any contaminated soil that remains beneath the buildings. In addition, contaminated soil may remain in place beneath other hardscape covered areas located outside the building footprints, such as the T2 Plaza area, driveway areas, and the bike station. Under Alternative 3, all contaminated soil within the T1, T2, T3, and T4 development areas would be removed and disposed at a licensed landfill. Most of the contaminated soil would be excavated as part of the building construction. Additional excavation beyond the depth required for construction would be conducted as needed to remove contaminated soil. After comparing effectiveness, environmental impact, feasibility, and cost, Alternative 2 provides safe cleanup while being practical and cost-effective. Further details about Alternative 2 are on the next slide. Let me explain what will happen under Alternative 2, which is the proposed cleanup alternative chosen in the draft RAP. The top 4 feet of soil will be removed from the T1, T3, and T4 building areas. Limited excavation is expected for construction of the T2 Plaza area. Contaminated soil will be disposed at a licensed landfill. After removal, confirmation soil testing will be conducted to confirm soil remaining in place is safe. Building foundations and floors will act as protective barriers or caps over any remaining contamination. Hard surfaces like the plaza, driveways, and bike station also provide protection. Soil excavated during future construction and maintenance activities will require special handling, evaluation, and disposal considerations. Detailed management plans will guide future safety measures for maintenance and construction at the site. An operations and maintenance plan and a soil management plan will be prepared that describe measures required to manage the soil in place to prevent unacceptable risk to future occupants, contractors, and maintenance workers. Regular observation, inspection, and maintenance will be necessary for the long-term integrity of the hardscape cap. A DTSC approved land use covenant will be recorded on the property, requiring compliance with the soil management plan and prohibits activities that may encounter contaminated soil without prior approval of DTSC. Future residents, workers, and visitors will be protected from any remaining contamination through these layers of safety measures. What you can expect after tonight and during the comment period. We will review and address all public comments received during the 30-day comment period. Based on these comments, the plan may be revised. If no major changes are needed, we will approve the cleanup plan and the cleanup will be implemented. Following the cleanup, an operations and maintenance plan, or O&M plan, will be prepared. Operations and maintenance monitoring will be ongoing. A land use covenant will be recorded on the property to ensure long-term safety. This process ensures community input is heard and incorporated before any work begins. I will now pass the presentation back to Denise. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Before we close tonight's formal presentation, I want to express our gratitude to everyone who has already engaged in this project. We've received emails and phone calls from community members throughout the process, and your ongoing participation has been valuable in shaping our approach. Now I need to share this important deadline. The public comment period closes next Friday, June 20th. Whether you submit comments by email or traditional mail, please have them postmarked by June 20th so they can be included in our official review process. After Friday's deadline, our DTSC project team will carefully review and analyze every comment we receive. Then we'll prepare a thorough response to comments document addressing your concerns and suggestions. Thirdly, these written responses will be posted on the West Oakland BART EnviroStored project page, and we'll send updates to everyone who has provided their contact information throughout this process. Please note, our team specifically focuses on environmental cleanup processes and procedures. If you have any questions about parking, retail development, residential units, or issues with nearby homeless encampments, those fall under city planning jurisdiction. You can contact your city planner for those matters. Peterson Bowman is the planner for this project. He can be contacted at pbowman@oaklandca.gov. His number is 510-238-6167. We're here to address questions about the cleanup site itself and our environmental cleanup processes. We want to take a moment to genuinely thank each of you who has reached out. The public comment period is an open window of time for people to share their opinions, concerns, and suggestions. The DTSC project team considers all comments before the draft cleanup is finalized. You can contact us if you have questions about the cleanup after this meeting is over. Our project manager is Sarah Larice. Her number is 714-484-5321. Email address is sarah.larice@dtsc.ca.gov. For any community engagement questions, you can contact me, Denise One, Public Participation Specialist. I can be reached at 510-540-3028. My email address is denise.one@dtsc.ca.gov. And if you're a representative from media, you can reach out to our Public Information Officer, Russ Edmondson. You can call him at 916-214-2208. Email address is russ.edmondson@dtsc.ca.gov. Next, we're going to have a 5-minute break to give you a chance to stretch out and to prepare for the interactive portion of our evening, where we'll have the Q&A session and then the public comment session. Welcome back, everyone. For those who have joined us during the break, let me review what we've covered. Sarah Larice, the project manager for West Oakland BART Mandela site, provided a thorough overview of DTSC's site mitigation and restoration program and presented a detailed background information about the West Oakland BART site and walked through our proposed cleanup plan approach. Now for the part we've been looking forward to, hearing from you. Before we begin taking questions, you can advance to the next slide too. I want to remind everyone that all project documents, including the complete draft cleanup plan, are publicly available on DTSC's EnviroStore database. You can access these materials in the link in the chat. Now let's review how to participate in our question and answer session. For text-based questions, click on the Q&A button on your Zoom toolbar. Note that we've disabled the general chat function to keep questions organized, so please use the Q&A feature specifically. For verbal questions, click the Raise Hand button and wait for us to call on you. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute yourself when we call on you. For our Spanish and Chinese speaking or Mandarin speaking participants, please feel free to use the Q&A text feature. Our interpreters will facilitate the communication and ensure your questions are clearly understood. A few guidelines on how to help us serve everyone effectively. We'll address questions in the order they're received. This approach ensures we can give you complete answers. Thanks again for your patience as we work through everyone's questions. We had a couple of questions from the presentation. West Oakland Environmental Indicator Project staff asked, can you post an English language version of this meeting slides in the chat, please? I only see a link to Spanish and Chinese versions. Thanks. Mentioned that we have those versions, the Mandarin and the Spanish language, up and published because we have the English version being shown on the screen, and we wanted to ensure that our Spanish and Mandarin speakers can follow along on a PowerPoint slide. Next question from Wokan. Sorry, I just joined. Is there a link to the draft cleanup plan? Part one of the question. And I dropped a link in the answer that takes you directly to the environmental and the EIR and the draft cleanup plan. And then the next part two of the question. In progress. Are bioremediation methods being considered? And there's a follow-up from someone else saying, from Wokan saying, DTSC funded a site investigation and bioremediation pilot project at the former Jenkins junkyard 2 blocks away from the site. That is true, but I wanted to pose this question to our project team to ask about bioremediation. Please come on camera and share.
Hi, this is Sarah Larice, project manager with DTSC. I can attempt to answer that part of the question, and the other team members that are on this call, if they want to jump in after I'm done, that'd be great. I'm not super familiar with the Jenkins Auto Wreckers site. I have heard of it and have heard about their bioremediation pilot testing. I know that is it's a separate site, and if you have any questions specifically about that project, you can definitely reach out to the project manager, or you can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with the project manager from DTSC for that project. For this project, bioremediation techniques, I don't believe they were considered for several reasons. One being that they can take quite a long period of time for the actual process. And also, I'm not sure, and this is where I'm going to ask my technical team to jump in, I'm not sure if bioremediation is an appropriate method of cleanup for the chemicals of concern at this property.
Hi,
Thanks,
Sarah.
Go ahead.
I can take a stab at that as well. So hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Hu. I'm the project toxicologist for the site. To add on to Sarah's question, she is correct that there is some bioremediation technologies being considered at sites such as Jenkins Junkyard. My understanding for this site in particular is that it may not be appropriate based on certain site-specific characteristics and other characteristics for the site. One of them could be that maybe an excavation in this situation is more appropriate because of the time span it takes to excavate, which may be on the scale of days to weeks versus a bioremediation test or bioremediation, which may
Looks like Michelle froze there. We'll let her.
Yeah, I think I think she was, I'm not sure myself about the bioremediation process and how long it would take, but it's a lot longer than it would to do the excavation, I believe was where she was going with that. Thank you for your question. When Michelle pops back in, if she does, we'll have her chime back in, but do we want to go back
Sure.
to other questions?
Circle back. Yes.
Or
We have
Claudio. Sorry, I just saw Claudio did indicate he could jump in. That'd be great. Or Mark.
Go ahead, Claudio.
Yeah, Claudio, why don't you go ahead first?
Hello there. My name is Claudio Sorrentino, and I'm a toxicologist at DTSC as well. Bioremediation is a very complex methodology, and you have to, it could be effective. Typically takes a much longer time than excavation. And also you need to consider that you have to do a number of pilot tests ahead because, sometimes certain microbes work with some contaminants, but not on others, and they may counteract each other. So each site can be approached differently, and these technologies may not be, the fact that it is used at the 2 blocks away may not be applicable to this one as well because of the different type of contamination that is present. Mark, do you want to add anything?
Yes. Get on up. There. Hi, Mark Sorensen, engineering geologist with DTSC. Yes, I agree with everything people have said thus far. Yeah, I think the time aspect is a big one, and you do need to do this preliminary testing to make sure that a treatment method is actually effective. It is a complex task. And sometimes there are, you're trying to reduce the bioavailability of lead, and depending on the situation, the conditions, and the organisms, you can actually potentially increase bioavailability and thereby leaching of lead, and that's that introduces whole new problems and just extends your cleanup time. As to Jenkins, that's a different set of contaminants. It's petroleum, chromium, and I think some volatile organic compounds. And so those are much different chemically than lead. And that I think it does, bioremediation does have good possibilities there. One other thing about the application of bioremediation for lead is that I think you would most effectively be able to do it by having the pavement and you'd have to have the demolition basically done to be able to deliver. You need to deliver amendments to the soil, and that, that also, time is a factor here, and that would just kind of limit your options. So I think, there are a number of reasons why, that it is a method with promise, but for this site, it has a number of limitations. And excavation is, once you take the soil, the contaminated soil, and all the lead is almost exclusively in the upper 1 to 4 feet of soil. Once you take it out to a permitted landfill, it's gone. And of course, the lead under the buildings is protected by a cap that's, either a building foundation, building slab, or pavement, and that's going to remain in place for the long term. So yeah, that's, I think, a number of reasons why excavation was selected, and bioremediation was not, didn't make it to the final cut.
Thank you, Mark. Mark is our engineering geologist. And I also noticed in the Q&A, Peter Langtree at Cornerstone Earth Group, they prepared the draft cleanup plan. The types of contaminants detected at the site are not readily biodegradable. Our next question comes from David Miller, who raised their hand and typed a question in the box. I'll read your question out and then I'll unmute you. David's question is, can you tell me where the landfill materials from this project will be transported to? And David, you're unmuted.
Yeah, that was just really my question. I didn't realize I could get it typed in, or whether I should raise my hand. So either way you want to address it. But if you can give me some information on how and where that transport will occur for the materials.
Hi, this is Sarah, the DTSC project manager. I am not sure that the landfill has been determined yet. We are still working through the cleanup plan and finalizing that. And then once that is completed, there will be what's called a remedial design and implementation plan. And in that, we will have determined which landfill the contaminated soil will go to. Thank you for your question.
Our next question comes from Brian of the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. The presenter, Sarah, said that groundwater is not a problem. Can we get the data that supports that determination? South Prescott is generally a downgrade from the site, and we already have a Superfund site here.
Yeah, this is Sarah Larice, DTSC project manager again. Thank you for your question. I believe that all of the information you could find in the draft RAP. There is a site investigation history section, the health risk assessment, health risk analysis and risk assessment section is also in there. It will have all that information that you are looking for. There's also additional information on EnviroStore, additional investigation reports that were completed previously that determined that the groundwater, what the quality of the groundwater is, and the health risk assessment determined whether or not it needed remediating. Did that answer the question?
Unless someone has something else to add. Okay.
Yeah, hi. Just briefly, Mark Sorensen, engineering geologist with DTSC. I looked at this recently, and there were about 8 samples of groundwater collected, and I believe that lead was not detected in any of them. But if it was detected, it was well below the screening level. Of level of concern. So, it's fairly good characterization of groundwater based on that sampling.
Thank you, Mark.
Our next question comes from an audience member, Wokan. Please speak. You're unmuted.
Thank you very much. My name is David Peters with the West Oakland Cultural Action Network. Sorry, I'm forgetting your name. I think the engineer that mentioned the contaminants at the Jenkins junkyard. So we're doing community engagement on that project, and we've been trying to find out what the contaminants are, and we haven't been able to find that out yet. So I'm just trying to figure out how do we stay up to date on the latest information. And I'm looking on EnviroStar, and I don't see the contaminants that you named listed there yet. I do see, PCBs. So that's not this project, but I just wanted to throw that out there on this call. Related to this project, I'm trying to understand the timeline. And so is it that the developer is going to demolish the sites where there's soil contamination, and then the soil is planned to be hauled away in the gap between then and the construction, and that this won't happen until some future date when that project is funded? That's kind of the first question about the timeline. And should I ask the next question, or should I wait for that?
Let's just wait for folks to answer this first question.
Let me answer that real quick. So the construction, as I understand, is going to be happening in phases. So the first phase, I'm not sure which of the T1, T2, T3, or T4 areas is first, but one phase will be completed, and then the cleanup will happen. That phase will be developed, and then they'll move on to the next phase where the cleanup will happen, and then that phase will be developed. So they are phasing it in a manner that it'll happen. The cleanup will happen at the same time as the development of each phase.
Okay, now I understand the timing this issue. Because the soil isn't exposed, you need to have time if you do bioremediation for it to happen, but they're going to want to do the vertical development as quickly as possible after that. I want to step back and just ask a more thoughtful and prodding paradigm question. So here's I think what we're hearing around the Jenkins site. Bioremediation is vastly more inexpensive than dig and haul, which is not only tremendously expensive, but also exposes the local community from all the risks of having an exposed dust. I hear you're going to tarp it, dust, truck. Some of that stuff's going to escape. And this is a community that already has significant asthma and other air quality issues that have affected human health and lungs and stuff. So I'm want to challenge. I heard a lot of might and maybe about the potential contaminants and potential bioremediation methods. I did hear one of the folks say lead might not be appropriate. Some other things, this may not just be appropriate at this site. But I want to challenge DTSC to look more seriously at bioremediation and consider that in all sites, and perhaps to have a orientation where that's your first default option rather than dig and haul. I think it's safer for communities. I think it's safer for workers. I think it's safer for our environment than to take this stuff and make it somebody else's problem somewhere else where you haul it to. And I think it's vastly cheaper with our tax dollars. So I'm no expert. I'm just a community member who is expressing this opinion. And I think it's up to DTSC to figure all that stuff out with the technical expertise and resources that you have. And then finally, I'm thinking about, will there be like fence line air monitoring at these sites as you're doing this dig and haul? so that we can be
Well, before
assured.
we proceed with that question, we have someone on the panel who can answer.
Sorry, I just thought that was a statement. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Megan. You can take yourself off camera.
I unfortunately cannot be on camera right now, but I just wanted to let you know and some reassurance that I am the supervisor for the Jenkins Auto Wrecker site as well. And so if you want to reach out to me, my name and the project manager's name are both listed on the EnviroStore page for that project. And I would just like to reiterate or echo that bioremediation is a great option. Unfortunately, it is very much not a one-size-fits-all. So it is on our radar as a great progressive way to clean up a site. But I guess that's all I have for now, just to reassure you that, we've evaluated what we can for this site. And if you have any other questions regarding Jenkins, you can reach out to me via email.
Thanks, Megan. And you had a third part of your question?
I did. I've already shared your email with some other folks on my team, Megan. We'll be in touch. And just thinking about, during this process, monitoring. And so again, I'm just a community member, but I shouldn't say just a community. I'm an interested community member, and we are probably most affected by what's going on here. So wondering if there's going to be air monitoring, at the fence line monitoring at the project for dust and other contaminants might be dug up or dust blowing away, or what kinds of, and I don't even know what's appropriate. What kind of monitoring will happen at this site once it's exposed and we have those dust piles?
Let's have the panelists answer that question.
Yeah, this is Sarah Larice, project manager with DTSC. I think I can answer that question. Thank you, David, for that question and for your thoughts before on the previous comment. For this project, once the draft document is approved, the draft remedial action plan is approved, the environmental consultant for the developer will prepare several different plans that will include safety measures for the community. They will prepare a remedial design and implementation plan, a community air monitoring plan, a soil management plan, and I'm drawing a blank on what the HASP is. If anybody wants to jump in, the health and safety plan. Thank you. My understanding is that within these plans, they are going to include dust control measures, which includes perimeter dust monitoring, perimeter wind screens, and moisture control as typically required by the Bay Area AQMD. When not actively in use, soil stockpiles will be covered with plastic liners. Vehicle speeds will be controlled while on site. Vehicles and equipment will be cleaned, and track out will be monitored to prevent contaminated soil from leaving the controlled property boundaries. Streets surrounding the site will be swept and cleaned to reduce off-site dust and dirt generation. And these are the measures that will ensure that dust levels are kept low and do not impact their surrounding neighborhood during the cleanup.
Thanks. We're going to move on to our next question because we have many questions. And I just want to emphasize that you're more than just a community member. We do appreciate all your questions and what you bring to the table. For our next question, West Oakland Environmental Indicators project staff, where is the landfill located where the soil will be going?
Oh, we already answered that question. We're not sure yet.
Thanks.
I think.
Okay. And Brian was saying that answers my question, but EnviroStore is not easy for community folks to work with. I want to say it's our workhorse. It's not the most the most user friendly. If you ever need any kind of assistance going through the tabs, I'll tell you that right off. If you go to any project page site, if you go to the community involvement tab, that's where we'll be putting a lot of the materials, like the draft cleanup plan, the EIR and other documents. Another question from WOEIP staff. Can you explain how access will be impacted during the remediation process, both to the site specifically and within the surrounding area streets? That is a question that would be handled by the City of Oakland Planning. We handle mainly the cleanup portion of the West Oakland BART site, and I'll put the city planner information in the chat for you. From WOEIP staff. To build on Mr. Peters' comments about dig and haul, what health and environmental impacts on residents from the process has DTSC considered, and how will those be mitigated?
So this is Sarah Larice with DTSC. I'm the project manager. For the mitigation measures, these are all going to be detailed in the plans, the cleanup plans that, or the remedial design and implementation plan and the community air monitoring plan, soil management plan, and the health and safety plan. All these plans are going to be prepared by the environmental consultant for the developer, and then DTSC will review and concur with the plans. They will have all the plans in place to protect the community during the cleanup. These will also be, once they're approved, they will be on EnviroStore. They will be posted there, and that way the community will be able to read and review the plans at that time.
Yeah, and hi, Mark Sorensen, engineering geologist again. Yeah, and just to add on to what Sarah said, yeah, that's in particular the concern about dust and respiratory hazards that is discussed in the community air monitoring plan. That's the critical plan for that issue. And I would just point out that whenever the perimeter monitoring points show up with high values of dust, respirable dust above a certain standard, and I don't know what that is. It's usually a typical standard of PM10 particles. Then if a number exceeds the standard, then operations stop at the site and they take actions to minimize dust, whether it's wetting down the piles or covering piles, and that operations don't start again until the dust hazard goes away. And sometimes it could last for a little while depending on wind conditions, but in general, that's going to be minimized by practices on site of wetting down any exposed piles and covering the piles in trucks that are going to be going off-site to the landfill. But good question. Thank you.
I'd just like to take a pause to let the interpretation team chime in to see if we have any questions from audience members in Mandarin or Spanish. So that pause indicates to me that we don't have any questions from the language channel. Thank you for confirming. Any questions in Mandarin? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Our next question from Nicole. From Nicole Marino Sui. In Spanish interpreter, we can hear you. So. Okay. Thank you. Is there a concern regarding groundwater intrusion? I think we addressed that question, but I don't remember the answer. Doesn't mind chiming in.
I can chime in, Sarah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sorry about the technical issues. I'm Michelle Hu. I'm the project toxicologist for the site. So in regards to groundwater intrusion, as we stated before, we are primarily concerned with contaminants in the soil, such as metals, PAHs or polyaromatic hydrocarbons, as well as PCBs or polychlorinated biphenyls. And so these tend to stick towards the surface and are unlikely to transfer down into the groundwater. We did also test for groundwater, and there were little to no detections of any contaminants of concern. And so because of this, groundwater is not impacted either from previous site history or from the current contaminants at the site.
Thanks for recapping, Michelle. Brian from WOEIP, how can the community influence the various cleanup plans? I can answer that question. You can influence the plans by submitting a public comment during this window of time. The public comment period ends on Friday, June 20th. And we'll, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll continually repeat, we will address every single comment and review them thoroughly after the public comment period closes. And we'll have a formalized response to comment document. And that does influence the finalization of the draft cleanup plan. And there are various ways that you can submit the comments. We have online methods. You can mail it to us. We did send out a community update with a form, and that could be sent to our project manager, Sarah Larry. So we have the mail method and then the online version. So those are the two best ways that you can influence and have your voice heard about the draft cleanup plan. Next question from WOEIP staff. And when will those plans be released? Thank you.
So the cleanup plan that is currently under review will be after the 30-day comment period. We'll review all the comments, we'll respond to all the comments, and then we'll be able to either approve the plan or determine if we need to make any changes to it based on the comments. So after that period, we'll have to determine if the plan can be approved at that time. For the other plans, the remedial design and implementation plan and the other monitoring plans that I mentioned, those will be prepared following the approval of the draft remedial action plan. Thank you for your question.
We'll take a raised hand. We have WOEIP staff. You're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you for answering all of these questions. I'm trying to just get some clarity around that timeline and the comment period. So comment period closes on the 22nd for this cleanup plan. And then there's going to be a series of safety measures released in separate plans. Will there be comment period? And that's TBD when those get released, it sounds like. and that based on the approval of this plan, and then will there be any comment period for those plans? Because it sounds like it sounds like a lot of the details around mitigation efforts during the cleanup aren't actually available until those plans are submitted. So I'm curious if there's a comment period for those plans as well. Thanks.
Thanks for your question. And as a point of clarification, the public comment period ends on Friday, June 20th.
Great.
Sarah,
Thank you.
no problem. Sarah, I think you can answer the other part of her question.
Yeah, we usually the 30-day public comment period is for the cleanup plan itself. The other plans are not generally, we do not have a 30-day public comment period for them. But they will be, once we approve the plans, they are available on EnviroStore. If there's any questions or comments or anything, I'm always available for you to reach out to me as the project manager, and I can do my best to answer any questions or find the right person over at DTSC that can answer those questions.
Okay, that does feel a little like it's a little challenging, I feel like, for community members to engage in planning that hasn't happened yet, and that we won't have an opportunity to reflect on and provide comments on, just as a sort of point of feedback for your process.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear that it's not always easy to get that feedback across. So that's, again, why we have this public comment period. If you have suggestions on like modes of engagement that you find would be suitable. Also, we conducted a community survey on the site prior to the public comment period to explicitly ask about how people would like to be contacted, how they would like to receive their information, or whether it's through old school newspaper postings or neighborhood sites like Nextdoor and so on and so forth. So we've been doing our due diligence to not only put the survey out, but to call people and do community interviews for the site. So we have a lot of data on that. It's on our community profile sheet, which is also in the community involvement tab of EnviroStore. And I can direct that to you and drop you the links for that.
And, in the actual draft cleanup plan, there are discussions about the other plans that are forthcoming, and do include, there is some information in there about that. So I do recommend, to read the cleanup plan if you haven't already, and then following that, if you still have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me or the team, any one of us.
And also, even though the community survey had closed, I'm always open to taking feedback on how people would like to be informed in the community and how they'd like to participate. We'll take a raised hand question from Brian. You're unmuted.
Thank you. And this is sort of relative to the same series of questions. So this project is in a very tight location, surrounded by residential neighborhoods, in a community that has frankly suffered at the hands of both developers and your own agency historically. You all are great. I appreciate you being here. DTSC, we've worked with DTSC, my organization's worked with DTSC for 20 years in various advisory capacities. So I think that the question I have, and I think the question other folks are trying to ask is, it isn't about how you can inform us, whether we want an email or a letter in the mailbox. How do we inform these other plans? Because standard operating procedure may not be what is right for this community. And being told, well, consultants for the developer will do all this work, and then you'll post it on EnviroStore, and that's that. I think there's, in the spirit of environmental justice and justice itself and good community engagement, there should be a method by which this community can have a voice in those 5 or 6 other plans that you've already said will be written in the coming days, weeks, months, or years. And not someone needs to take the center of this and not force us to chase people around. I'm going to chase down a consultant. I got to chase down the air district. I got to chase down the city, traffic control. Everything's in a different bucket, and it's up to us to chase them all down and try to figure out what it all means. This is a huge project, huge impact. We've known the developer for a long time. I think in general, we've been waiting for the transit village to happen. Very many positive elements here. But the way it gets done from like today forward can either be smooth and you can have a community that likes it and feels heard, or you can have a rocky road and a community that feels like we're just getting the standard procedure for community engagement. So that's really my point here is, do we get to do we ever get a presentation before those other presentations are handed to you and go on EnviroStore? Is that part of the engagement? And who runs point on this project, so that we don't have to try to talk to 6 different agencies and 3 consultants?
Ryan, thank you so much for your questions and comments. We really do take them to heart. And, I know that DTSC and West Oakland Environmental Indicators Projects has had a relationship over the past few decades over projects, and that we do have like turnover, and that communication can be frustrating. So we are making a pointed, concerted effort to put more focus on West Oakland and getting information out. We have a couple of ideas in mind, such as doing a story map as something to beta test as a holistic way to bring cleanup sites together. And I hear you about like the standard operating procedure that you want to get the information before the plan comes up front, but we also have, so that's something that we would like to work on improving. I don't know if anyone else can speak to that.
One thing I would say is that to me, one of the key concerns that you're expressing, and that I would have too, is with the dust generated by the excavation and the loading, and in general, the community air monitoring plans that I've seen have all been to what I think is a pretty high standard. And I don't know the numbers. Maybe Michelle might, but I don't know. But I believe that that is what is basically a pretty high standard now, and with the practices of making sure that things are that the traffic ways are wetted down, and the any open exposures of soil are either covered or wetted down, and then we have the basically real-time air monitoring downwind. 2 locations, or I don't know how many locations. It's always downwind locations according to whatever the size of the site is. So I would take some comfort in that these are that especially excavation sites are done very frequently in urban areas and suburban areas. And as far as I know, the standards have always been to a similar high level of attainment of air quality based on dust hazard. But thank you for the question.
And then I can also add on to what Mark discussed. I'm the project toxicologist, Michelle, for the site. So in regards to the community air monitoring plan, or CAMP, we do make sure that the camp is designed to protect a hypothetical person who is sitting right outside the fence over an 8-hour period during the actual excavation or during the duration of the work. A lot of these measures or protocols that Mark was mentioning, such as, whether vehicles will be driving a certain speed or if the streets will be swept up or cleaned to reduce off-site dust, as well as a lot of the air monitoring parameters set by the Bay Area Air Quality Monitoring or Management District, or BACMed. A lot of these general details are found within the actual RAP, or Remedial Action Plan. So even though we might not have the specific details, such as, the name of the landfill that the soil is going to, we do have set protocols and high standards, such as Mark was alluding to, that the safety of the community is kept in mind, and that, any of the work being done will not harm any of the receptors or community members on site.
We're going to take one more question before we move over to the public comment portion of the meeting. This comes from Janae's iPhone. What is the advice for immunocompromised community members dealing with respiratory issues living next to the site? That's part one of the question. Two-part question. Let's start with that.
I can take that, Denise. So I'm sorry to hear that you have members in your family that are immunocompromised and dealing with respiratory issues. Although I'm not a medical professional and can't provide specific, guidance on how to treat your specific disease, I can say that we are implementing certain measures and controls to ensure that any soil that may be generated during the excavation or construction will be mitigated and managed. So things like what we were discussing before, dust control measures such as, wetting the soil, making sure that the soil is not being tracked off site with any of the vehicles coming in and out during the excavation process, as well as air monitoring. These are the things that we can ensure to be done, that soil is not leaving the site. And if you do have any questions about your health, I'd urge you to speak with your doctor about these concerns, and they can provide better information about how to deal with your concerns in particular.
Thanks, Michelle. And part two, the question we've kind of answered already. If bioremediation is a better option for health of the human beings already living next to the site, and that is what taxpayers of West Oakland want, why wouldn't that be the focus? There's been a lot of interest expressed about bioremediation, and our panels were talking about that. So far, the way that could be summed up is that in the draft cleanup plan, the types of contaminants detected on the site aren't really biodegradable, so it might not actually be the best option for this particular site. If anyone would like to add on to that, please do, but that's what we've come up with. Also, before we move to the public comment session, we just wanted to check in again with the interpreters to see if the Mandarin and Spanish speaking members of our community have any questions. Thank you. Any questions in Mandarin? Okay. All right. So this is all the time we have for our Q&A. We are now in the public comment part of our meeting. This is your time to share your opinions and your concerns and suggestions about the West Oakland BART cleanup site. The difference between the Q&A portion and the public comment portion is that DTSC will not respond to your comments at this meeting. But after the public comment period ends on 6/20, we will gather and review all your comments before the draft cleanup plan is finalized and address the comments in writing in a response to comments document. If you have comments that you'd like to submit, you can submit them online at the link dropped in the chat. The same instructions for Q&A apply to the comment period. You can type out your comments by clicking the Q&A box on the right side of your toolbar. Please remember that the chat function is disabled. You can raise your hand if you'd like to speak to us and wait to be called on. For those who have dialed in on your phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And when I call on you, you can press *6 to unmute. We have some comments already. First one from WOEIP staff. Thank you. The issue isn't that engagement hasn't happened. It's that DTSC doesn't seem able to provide us with information about the specific safety measures until after the comment period closes. I'll definitely take a closer look at the cleanup plan, but for example, we have no way of knowing if the landfill this soil is going to is near another overburdened community. I think you're providing really helpful info here, and we definitely appreciate that. But safety measures seem like a big part of that, and we don't have the ability to comment on them. And another comment from Brian. I understand the dust controls. I'm concerned with the street blockages, truck routes, staging areas, time of day, restrictions on the work, and myriad other impacts on the South Prescott neighborhood. And Kettleman City dump is very controversial. We would not support that destination. I don't see any raised hands from the audience. We're just going to give folks time to type in their comments, or if you'd like to raise your hand and speak. And just as a reminder, folks, our public comment period ends next Friday, June 20th. And you can submit your comment on our website. I'll drop that link in the chat.
Recording in progress.
Interpreters, have any comments come in from our Mandarin Spanish-speaking community members? Thank you. We're going to give folks a couple more minutes to submit comments or raise their hands before we close out our meeting. And I just wanted to remind folks that if you have any questions or comments about the parking or actual details about the development, please direct those questions to your city planner, the City of Oakland. His name is Peterson Bowman. And we're here standing by to take any questions and concerns about the site cleanup. I also wanted to take a moment to address a pertinent and relevant question here from WOEIP staff. How can community members report potential issues with site compliance during the cleanup? Who should they reach out to?
They can reach out to me. Sorry, this is Sarah Larice with DTSC Project Manager. Feel free to reach out to me. I can do my best to answer any questions and figure out where to go from there. And my contact information is in the chat as well as Denise's.
I also want to acknowledge a comment about our language accessibility from WOEIP staff. Really appreciate the accessibility on this call. Well, we aim to make sure that our materials are accessible to members of our community, so thank you. I don't see any raised hands. I don't see any typed comments in our Q&A. So let's move on to the next slide, please. I just want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight. You can pull up our project information at the link here in the EnviroStore database. You can also come to our Berkeley Regional Office, which is located on 700 Hines Avenue, Berkeley, California, 94710. Make sure that you call to make an appointment first. The number to make that appointment is at 510-540-2122. We have a secondary location for these materials. I also wanted to emphasize that the materials we're talking about are the draft cleanup and the EIR and the community profile. And that gives the information about the work we've done in terms of collecting information and talking to folks in the West Oakland community. The second location, information repository location, is at the West Oakland Branch Library. That's at 1801 Adeline Street, Oakland, California. You can also call them at 510-238-7352. Next slide, please. Again, we do appreciate you for joining us tonight and caring so deeply about your community. Your thoughtful questions and comments about the site cleanup show the strength of this West Oakland community. If we didn't get to all questions, it was due to time, but please know that they all matter to us. And your comments will be included in our response to comments document posted on DTSC's EnviroStore database after June 20th. So your engagement, especially during these challenging times, means everything to us. This is your neighborhood, and your voice shapes it. Our conversation doesn't have to end there. Please reach out to us with any follow-up thoughts or concerns. Please take care, stay safe, and thank you for making this community stronger.